What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My name is Paul. I make videos about Japanese society, life, and culture from the viewpoint of a long-term resident, getting close to my 20th year anniversary. And today I'm going to be talking about another layer of a topic that I started last week, which is how foreigners are treated in Japan or viewed by Japanese people. And last week I talked about two layers of this multi-layered topic, and today I'm going to be focusing specifically on the topic of discrimination. Not anecdotal stories or about things that have happened to me or people I know, but institutional discrimination. Ways that the government, that businesses, that financial institutions can discriminate against foreigners living in Japan in a way that's legal and basically allowed, and is something that could happen to you, or certainly will happen to you if you live here. If you live here or are planning on living in Japan, you will probably encounter these things. And I'm going to be listing 5 types of institutional discrimination today. The 5th one in particular is the one that bothers me the most, the one that upsets me more than the others. And so be sure to stick around and listen for that one. But before I get started with the first one, I just want to give a quick thank you to all my new subscribers. I'm probably going to hit 5,000 in the next month or so, and that's really cool, and I'm really happy to see the channel growth, and I want to give a big thank you to those of you who have subscribed, and please do so if you haven't already. If you've watched a few of my videos and you're not subscribed, please join. And just quickly, you can find me on Instagram. The handle over there is the same as this channel. It's xchapter on Instagram. So if you go over there, you can follow me for, the other parts of my life that aren't YouTube. So hope to see you over there. And without further ado, let's get into the first type of discrimination that you will experience in Japan as a foreign resident. And it's probably the most well known, so I'm not going to say a whole lot about it. That is rent discrimination. The fact that there is no law or regulation that requires landlords to rent to everyone. There are plenty of landlords in Japan who just have a blanket no foreigners policy. So if you go to a housing agent, they'll probably have a list of places that they know they're not even going to show to you. And they might call up landlords while you're in the office and ask them, do you rent to foreigners? And you'll get a yes or a no straight away. Now, the one thing I will say about this is that I've often read or seen the excuse that they do this because of a language barrier. It's not discrimination because you're a foreigner, it's just they're worried there might be a communication problem if there's any trouble over the rental agreement or something like that. There's 2 problems with that though. First of all, some foreigners speak Japanese, so there is no communication issue. But second of all, for myself and for other people I know who went into the rental agency with their Japanese spouse, it didn't matter. It didn't matter that one part of the rental family was a full Japanese born and raised citizen who obviously will be able to communicate in Japanese if necessary. It didn't matter. I was refused outright with my wife sitting right next to me. So yeah, it's just a language issue is not true. It's really just a blanket ban. We don't want foreigners renting from us. The second way that you have a type of institutionalized discrimination in Japan is in the public service. If you become a public servant, bureaucrat in the Japanese government at the city or prefectural or national level, you cannot be promoted to positions of management as a foreigner. Basically, you will always be a lower level position, and it's just Japanese nationals only can become managers or higher ups. Now, the reason for this, I've read in a couple of different places, is that there's this idea that foreigners shouldn't be in a position of leadership over Japanese. So foreigners shouldn't be telling Japanese what to do. And I suppose that might be true, but I haven't seen the rules myself or what is actually coded into why this is the case. So that's what I've seen reported, but I don't know if that's true or just speculation. Now, I do know that in the public university system, that's not necessarily the case though, because there have been plenty of foreign residents, foreign faculty who have been in positions of power in the universities as a dean or president of the university. So it's not the same as the bureaucracy, meaning that if you're in a university, you can hold a position of management. It's just that if you are a public official who has taken the examination to become a bureaucrat, essentially the national examination to be able to hold that sort of government position, if you've taken that but you're a foreign resident, you're never going to advance in your career there. You're always going to be a low-level position. Unless, of course, you take Japanese citizenship. And then, well, now you can be promoted because you're Japanese. Okay, the third type of institutional discrimination is coming out of financial institutes. And this is a relatively new thing. See, the government recently, the national government that is, has recently put forth these rules or guidelines, suggestions for financial institutions to help crack down on instances of international fraud and money laundering, which I think that's a great thing. You know, less international monetary crime, I think, would be a good thing to fight against, right? So the problem is, while some institutions like the Japan Post Office has asked customers who have done international wire transfers to provide additional personal information, so I got a notification from the Postal Service and they are asking for extra ID and things to help so that they can, I don't know how it works, but basically to show that you are compliant and they have more information on you to help prevent these crimes. And the post office is doing that with all of their customers, Japanese and foreign. But there are a few financial institutions, including two from which I have credit cards, where I have received a notification in the mail that is asking only foreigners to comply with new reporting requirements, providing my resident card copies and more information in an online form, etc. I'm showing you a card right now that I got. This is a postcard that I got in the mail a few days ago, and I've redacted the name of the card company, but you can see that it is specifically targeting foreigners, and there are several institutions like this. Now, this happens to be a credit card I never use, and the other credit card company that did the same thing, they contacted me for more information, is a card that I never use as well. So basically, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to give them any extra information on me, and I'm just going to get rid of the cards, basically. If they want to play that sort of discrimination, I don't want to have that credit card. I don't want to give them any business. And honestly, it's because the underlying message is, it's foreigners who commit these financial crimes. We Japanese don't ever commit money laundering, so we have to crack down on the foreigners. That must be what the government meant. It's ridiculous, and it's blatant discrimination, and I won't hold on to the credit cards from those companies anymore. The fourth type of institutional or discrimination that you would get from a entity that isn't like individual people is mom and pop businesses in Japan will sometimes refuse you service because they don't want to deal with a foreigner, or they are afraid they can't communicate with you, or whatever it might be. But there have been numerous instances for myself and for people I know who, when entering a restaurant, for example, a mom and pop local place, you'll be told that, we have a full slate of reservations and therefore we don't actually have any tables available. They're all going to fill up in a half hour or whatever like that. And I've gone into empty restaurants that have claimed this, and I can see maybe that being the case, but the problem is I've tested this with Japanese friends, and my wife actually, and friends of mine have done this as well, where the Japanese spouse or friend has gone in after and gotten a table immediately. So it was just the foreigner that was turned away. And there's really nothing you can do about that. I mean, maybe you could try to bring some kind of lawsuit against the business, but that doesn't make any sense. There's really not much you can do except not give them your business, and you probably don't want to be eating there or paying money for whatever the shop service is if they don't want you as a customer. So why give them money, right? It has happened to me a few times, but if you're coming here as a tourist and you're worried that this might be a big issue, it's not, especially in tourist areas. It's pretty unlikely that it will happen to you, and if it does, you probably won't even realize that it happened. You'll just go in and it'll seem like there's a couple of tables and they'll say, oh, but we have reservations, and maybe they do, maybe they do. Okay. That's a cool tree. That's a cool tree. I wonder what that's about and why it's fenced off. Huh. Interesting. It's got the Shinto paper on it, so it must be holy. Okay, the final one, and as I mentioned before, this is the one that bothers me the most. And it's because the national government has made it clear that residents of Japan who are not Japanese, even permanent residents, people who have the permanent residency status like myself, do not actually have a right to sojourn or a right to be in Japan or return to Japan. And this became readily apparent during the pandemic, when there was a time across 2020, several months, when I would have been banned from entering the country. If I'd been outside of Japan during this time, if I'd been unlucky enough to have been in America or been at an international conference somewhere or something, and then the ban came into place, I would not have been allowed back into Japan, despite the fact that I'm a resident. So it doesn't matter that my family is here, my house and mortgage is here, my job is here, all my bank accounts are here, my entire life is here. Japan was the only G7 nation, the only major nation in the world who banned foreign residents from returning. Of course, everyone was banning tourists at that time, and rightly so. I mean, of course, you don't want to have tourists, flooding into your country when there's a pandemic virus going around, right? So that made sense, but not letting residents come back, I would have been away from my job for months. It just seems like, it's unfortunate that the government has decided. Again, there's kind of an underlying message that foreigners are more likely to be disease carrying, I guess. But what is the real difference between me on a plane back home to Japan versus a Japanese person next to me heading back home to Japan? Like, there is no difference. They're just as likely to carry a virus as I am. So it was really unfortunate that they did that, and I've talked about this in some videos before, and it's kind of the one thing that I don't think I'll ever really forgive Japan for. Luckily, I wasn't actually affected by it because I was in Japan, but, well, let's just say that I lost a lot of trust in my place in this country when that happened, because it really was a rough message to receive that, oh, yeah, we'll take your taxes, we'll take all your contributions to the healthcare and pension system, but you can't come back in the country, sorry. Like, that's rough. It's rough to get that message as a person who's basically dedicated my entire life to living in this country, and then be told that, oh, well, yeah, we don't actually think of you as a real resident here. Anyway, let us know what you think. Have you experienced other types of institutional discrimination where you are? Comment on what I had to say below, and I really like reading through the comments. I always say that it's probably the favorite part of the channel for me. And at the end of the day, I just want to thank you for watching the video, and I hope you will tune in every Saturday when I drop my new video every week, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.